Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm speaking to you guys from Houston, Texas, and even as I see the Zoom participants come on in, I see friends from all over the world. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Ellie Parker. I'm going to be presenting a short discussion today on an experience I had in spring of last year, working as an artist teacher, a music teacher inside a collaborative Youth Detention Facility. I'd like to extend my thanks to the Committee for the Status of Women for hosting this wonderful series, and thanks to them for hosting this opportunity. Before I kind of dive into my discussion, I think it's really important to provide a little bit of context about how this project came to be, how I fit into it, and where my role kind of began. And it's particularly important to kind of talk about the fact that this was already set in motion before I joined the group. So in I guess late 2018, spring 2019, there was an opportunity put forth by the City of Houston. Judge Ed Emmett, who was a local judge, created resources, created opportunities for funding to create artistic projects and artistic opportunities within the detention system across Harris County and across the City of Houston. This idea for a collaborative residency based on the idea of creating an opera called I Am My Future was the brainchild of Brandon Bell, who works for DeCamera of Houston, and Alyssa Magnolan, who works for Houston Grand Opera. They were responsible for creating the grant proposal, collaborating with each other to put this into action. The moment that I stepped into the project in August 2018, I became a young artist at DeCamera of Houston. DeCamera is primarily a jazz and chamber music concert programming organization, but we have a very, very strong and very diverse music education and opportunities for young artists, young professionals, maybe who are in school or recently graduated or any of their own paths, to be involved in community projects within the City of Houston. I was one member of the team, and it's been a really formative experience in my life as a young professional, as a young musician, and so I'm just one part of this larger cause that helped us to create this program. As I continue through the presentation, if you guys have questions, if you have comments, if you're watching either on Zoom or on Facebook, please feel free to type something out, add something in the comments bar, and Alexia is doing so wonderfully to help kind of shepherd these across. Okay. So I guess most importantly, it's important to have a plan, right? And when coming up with this plan, as I say, this was already in the realm, already in the works before I came into the project. But essentially, what was decided that was going to happen was that young artists from both DeCamera and Houston Grand Opera were going to come together, and over a series of 4 weeks, we were going to create an opera with juvenile residents of the Harris County Youth Village, focused on what they believed their future to be, what they could envision in their future, ideas of how life might exist after they left the place that they were in. And the picture you see on our screen is our intrepid group of young artists, like really, really tremendous colleagues that worked with us the whole way through. And I'd just like to take a moment to introduce each of them. So if we're looking at the screen, the left in the wonderful brown jacket was Austin, our double bassist, Maddie, violin, Julia Fox in the middle. She was a teaching artist from Houston Grand Opera, but she had previously been a DeCamera young artist, so she was just the most fabulous person to collaborate with. I'm there in the yellow jacket. Theo Chandler was a DeCamera young artist and also our composer, and then Brady was our percussionist. You may notice the bit of space equipment, like leftover rocket in the background of that picture. Harris County Youth Village is actually really close to the Johnson Space Center, just south of Houston. It's about, I don't know, 25 miles or something out of the center of Houston. But that group right there was a collaborative teaching artist group from both DeCamera and Houston Grand Opera as we went forward on our project. So the next question is, who are we going to be working with? So we specifically asked to be paired with a program called the GIFT program. GIFT stands for Girls Inspiring Future Triumphs. And they are a group of post-conviction juvenile inmates at the Harris County Youth Village. Now, post-conviction really means that they've already been tried for whatever crime they committed. They've been through the process of the judges and the lawyers. They've been given a sentence length and told that they're going to spend their time there. It's important to know that they have been tried and found guilty of a crime, but almost in many cases, they have also been the victims of trauma themselves. There have been events in their past that have made their personal backgrounds very difficult. I think, again, another thing that was always kind of a sense of curiosity is, who are the girls, right? What do you have to do to end up in this place? What kind of backgrounds do you have? And as a teaching artist and as a volunteer going in, we really don't know a lot of personal details about them. And it's incredibly important that we don't know. Our role as a music volunteer means that we never know the first names of the girls. We never know their ages. I know that the facility houses young people between around the age of 12 to 17. And if I was going to guess, I would maybe say closer to 15 to 17-year-old for our particular group of girls. But if I found out they were 13, I probably wouldn't be surprised. But we don't know their exact age. We also don't know their crimes. It's not relevant for us to know what they did to find themselves there. And this is important because they've been through whatever judgment was appropriate for them. And it's not really my role as a music volunteer or anyone within the teaching artist program to go and be a second form of judgment. We were advised by the staff that if a girl did try to tell us about her background, did try to tell us a little bit about their crime, that actually it's really not a place to go down, and it may not even be accurate. So we really avoided discussing any kind of details in that case. And the other thing is that we don't know is we're not aware of the length of their sentence. They could have arrived in the facility the week before, they could be several months in, maybe a year in. Again, we don't know. And in the same way, it's also really important that they don't know very much about us at all. For me, walking into a group of teenage girls with an accent like this, like questions are fairly unavoidable. So I was open and honest about the fact that I was a musician and I'm living in the city of Houston and I'm here to communicate with you guys, but personal questions, personal details are really not appropriate to share in this kind of environment. So we kind of held back from that as much as we can. Now, if you are in the GIFT program, one of the things that happens is that you are involved in 12 to 15 hours of therapy, group therapy every week. We know that they have to attend some kind of schooling, and actually the school was an important part of our program because it became the venue for our sessions. And we also know that during their time, they will be taking on all kinds of different treatments, medical treatments, social skills treatment, anger management, all of those kinds of things. So even though we don't know a lot of personal details about the girls that we're working with, there's all kinds of things that that we can grasp about them at the same time. So I said at the very beginning that the aim of the organization and the aim of our project was to create an opera, but opera was really a tool, a kind of a framework that we could build lots of other learning outcomes. So one of those things that we really wanted to do was to try to improve the attitudes of the girls, okay? And this is as simple as try to help them to like each other a little bit more, try to help them feel like they were part of a group, that the person next to you isn't the most evil person ever, and that you could have some kind of friendship with them, help them see that we were there as teaching artists to try to have a positive relationship with them. We wanted to create a safe place where creativity was encouraged, okay, which meant that we were going to be respectful with their ideas. We were going to try to help them discuss the things that they wanted to share with the group. We wanted to make them feel more confident and empowered. We wanted to give them an outlet for their creativity. We wanted to show that creativity was something to be excited about, to be rewarded, to be really positive. We wanted to increase listening skills, right? So try to create an environment where one person is speaking and we're all going to listen and we're all going to think about what that person says. And most importantly, to create a sense of community, create a sense that we're all in this together and that we're all going to help each other and work together towards one kind of common goal. And for us, the use of the term opera and that kind of framework was really, really useful for us trying to develop these other kind of social and emotional skills. So as I said before, the framework for our piece, the framework for our opera was I Am My Future. And as a way to try to help the girls to imagine their lives after they left the institution. And the three kind of frameworks that we developed together was to look at issues that have troubled you in the past, to consider skills, personal attributes that you already possess, things already within yourself that can help you reach your goals. And then to finally look ahead and see this vision of the future that could be in front of you. And that was really how we tried to structure our kind of our story and our narrative, was by going through these three different things. And after all kinds of workshopping and all kinds of different ways of communicating and building that sense of community, building that listening skills with the girls, what they ended up discussing and what they came up with as the basis for this musical experience was the fact that when you have experienced betrayal, you become cold-hearted. They discussed how difficult it was to overcome peer pressure. And they really saw the most important thing for their future was to be independent, joyful, loving, and healthy. Those were those really key parts. Now, as I said at the beginning, we had a 14-week timeline for this project, and we had slightly different staffing going on at different times. So sometimes all of the teaching artists would be in the room. Sometimes it would be Theo and Julia, Julia from Houston Grand Opera and Theo, our composer. But sometimes it would be a mix. We had some ideas about how long getting to this point would take. And I think that we all agreed that actually in reality, it took a lot longer than we thought. Building a community and building a space where the girls felt open enough to speak with us and talk about their experiences, talk about their past emotions, speak candidly, took an awful long time and lots of careful trust and exercises that were sometimes really successful and sometimes really not successful to help with opening up. This little side is a huge leap forward in trust and communication for this community. So it's something that we were incredibly proud of. In coming up with the actual musical performance of it, as I say, we work with Theo Chandler is one of our young artist composers, and I think we're going to listen to his music as we go on. It's tremendous, but it was really important to us that the girls were coming up with all of the lyrics. Every word they say, the stories they describe, the emotions they feel are straight from the girls. We didn't want to put words in their mouth or tell their story from them. We wanted to give them the opportunity to be creative and to talk about themselves candidly. Okay. So this is our stage, and if you think it looks like a cafeteria in a middle school, it is. That's exactly what it is, except it's a cafeteria in a youth detention center. As the staging was actually a complete surprise to us. We hadn't realized that the girls and other members of that community were excited to decorate the stage with us with the resources that were available to them. You can kind of see we did lots of word association and word games to try to build a kind of a positive attitude and positive words, and they're all kind of plastered on the wall and all these colors. It was phenomenal when we showed up to set up for the band, as it were, and we saw this here. One of the things that was part of the original application to do this project was that we wanted to give the girls t-shirts with as a kind of a form of a costume that they would be able to wear for the performance. The musicians wore the t-shirts and the girls, we all were kind of all in it together, and the t-shirt is going to be kept safe and kept secure so that it will be a parting gift when they leave the institution at the end of their sentence. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and play some music, play some music from the show. I want to give you a little heads up about some of the things that you're going to hear. First of all, those of you that have been to classical concerts know that we usually sit in complete silence, but you will hear a lot of giggling, a lot of shouting, a lot of kind of extra discussion from the girls. And that was just their pure excitement. It was always impossible for us to kind of keep a lid on everything, and they were just absolutely thrilled. So if you do hear some discussion or chatting, that's the girls, and it's just kind of a reflection of their kind of nervous energy, I guess, right at the beginning of the work. As I said before, every word that you hear them sing comes straight from them and is a reflection of themselves. And this very first piece of music that I want to play for you is called Sadness and Lies, and it comes from the beginning of the show. Brings absolute joy to my heart every time I hear that recording. It fills me with a lot of love and a lot of pride. And one of the things that I just really touches me every time is you know, our 14 weeks flew by in like a second. We had one dress rehearsal where we desperately tried to get from the beginning to the end with the girls. And I think that every time I hear them sing and I listen back to this recording, I can just hear the effort and the care that they're putting into sharing their voices, purely because it was an act of expression for them. And that's something that I find, that's something that we didn't coach. You know, we tried to talk to them about being open and looking to the audience and things like that, but that kind of singing from the heart, these individual voices, I think was really, really poignant. And each time I listen to these words again, I have a new experience with it. Okay, this next section is a little excerpt from a section called Peer Pressure and Positivity. There's a rap section in the middle of this that's kind of freestyle, that was free improvised in the middle of it. And before I play it, I want to explain to you a little bit about who our audience was on the day. So you saw before we had the staging behind us. And then we have the band, our ensemble of DeCamera musicians. Julia from HGO, she's standing at the front, kind of leading us through it, and the girls are stood in a kind of a horseshoe shape between the two of us. The audience itself, as we're kind of looking at it, was split into 3 different groups of people. To our kind of left-hand side, as we were looking, was all of the staff from within the institution itself. So our librarians, our teachers, therapists, officers, administrators, everyone that helps to keep those girls safe and moving through every day. And we were just thrilled to be able to show them off to those people. Right in front of us was a group of, I don't know, between 20 or 40 of the male inmates. So other young people in a similar position to the girls, their peers, people that they may know or may not know, but a group of male inmates right in front of us. And then on the right-hand side, we had members from the city of Houston. So we had commissioners, we had lawyers who represented them, we had local judges, members of the criminal justice department in the city of Houston, also here to kind of see who we were, what we were doing, and essentially what we produced. So this next session is a part of peer pressure and positivity, and I think you really get a feel for some of the nervous energy in that performance that day, and again, just the desire to be expressive.
Positivity is right. Positivity is a fight. Everybody's in the pool, everybody's pretty cool. She was chilling with her friends, praying this would never end. Everybody's in the pool, everyone's pretty cool. She was chilling with her friends, hoping this would never end. There was
And unfortunately, what you can't see in that audio recording is that as well as coming up with their own lyrics, as well as performing the show themselves, the girls also shared their own choreography. They came up with little moves and they taught each other those moves. And that was a really important part of that performance as well. So I want to now play you two short segments from the very end of the show as we're looking towards our future and considering what that opportunity might be. When the camera teaching artists, when we all sat down, before we had even walked into the facility, we came up with a kind of a brief little lesson plan of the things that we were going to try to do. We talked about different things that had worked in classrooms well before, different things. And the one thing that we came up with was to try to use an excerpt of Steve Reich's clapping music as a kind of a warm-up activity. Okay, guys, we can all clap together. That little rhythm we added words to, which I had used before, which are elephant, tiger, kangaroo, just to help us try and lock into that rhythm, and it was a wonderful thing. I think the girls really enjoyed everything being loud and noisy, and they loved clapping together, and we all learned the words, and that was great. And then when it came time to, creating our opera, that rhythm was something that we really wanted to incorporate because it had become such a pinnacle of our classes. And Theo had this really, really fantastic idea, which was rather than leaving that rhythm in a kind of a 3-meter, which is difficult to dance to and not as groovy, we actually made it into a 4-beat rhythm, which you'll hear. And then again, the elephant, tiger, kangaroo part, it kind of ended up being a little bit naff. And so we changed the words as well. And the girls came up with their own words to fit to that rhythm. So I just want to first play you a little example of our version of clapping music. I will never ever be able to hear that in the same way again. Finally, the last piece I want to play is an excerpt from the finale of our concert. This is right at the very end, and this is I Am My Future, This Is Me.
Depending on anybody else.
show. In the actual concert, we performed the whole thing twice, actually, to give the girls 2 opportunities. We managed to get 2 recordings, which they will receive a copy of, again, at the end of their sentence. So one of the questions at the end of the whole project was, oh, excuse me, did it work? Right. Our first task was to create an opera, and we did. It was about a 15-minute long performance, 15, 16 minutes. Theo diligently composed through all the different kinds of riffs, different kind of sections, different moods. The girls wrote the words to every single part. And we also, as you heard, had some opportunities for kind of freestyling or vamping round as well. But as I discussed at the very beginning, we had some larger commitments towards trying to encourage their sense of creativity, seeing if we could improve their moods, right? Seeing if we could improve their emotions and the way that they could discuss things between each other and connect as a community. We have a fairly unscientific way that we try to track that throughout the 14-week program. At the beginning and the end of every single time we visited the girls, whether that was a class, rehearsal type thing or the performance itself, we always did a mood meter. And we used this mood meter to begin the class, have the girls be able to have an opportunity to express how they were coming into this class, where they were at. They could choose a level or a color or a particular word based on their energy levels, how they were kind of feeling towards the world at that time. And there was also an opportunity, just an extra line, where they could write, they could give a justification or a reason for why they were feeling that way. So often when we began our classes, we would see that the girls were feeling tired, they were feeling upset, they were feeling despondent or miserable. Kind of a disclaimer to this, the class was at 8 a.m. on a Friday morning, so that could have something to do with it, and also maybe how the teachers were feeling, but they were generally feeling kind of low in themselves, not particularly ready to take on the day, as you can imagine. And often by the end of the 1-hour session, the girls were reporting that they felt excited, that they felt energized, that they felt ecstatic about what was going to go on. And in the comments section, why do you feel this way, excuse me? It was often some kind of a reason like, oh, they brought their instruments today, or we all sang together, or they learned my dance move, or we're learning my lyric, or something like that. A way of kind of giving ownership over to the girls and giving them an opportunity to be creative. Really, they did report an increased feeling of energy and kind of being part of that community. Obviously, we can't track how long this feeling continued, but we know that at the beginning and at the end, this was how they were reporting. And another reason that I think, for me, this was one of the most important musical experience I was in is kind of anecdotal. During the performance, we had kind of, the band is set up, the audience are in front of us, we're expectant, we're waiting for this to happen. The girls do this really beautifully choreographed walk out onto the stage where they're stood in their line, and we're kind of waiting for the show to begin. And we can kind of just hear, like, there's just sounds different, but we can hear there's this little comment, there's one girl looking at another saying, "You're a B star, star, star," and she says it quietly the first time, and then her voice gets a little bit louder, and we can see that there's a moment where, oh my goodness, is something going to happen here? Are we going to have to bring in staff members? What's going to happen? But luckily the music started, it diffused the whole situation, and we went ahead with our performance. Afterwards, Julia went and spoke to the girl and said, regardless of what this girl did or didn't do to deserve that kind of, to warrant that kind of discussion, what stopped you? What stopped you from going ahead and creating some kind of an altercation? And the girl just said very casually, well, we've worked really hard on this, and I didn't want to make the others look bad. Which I think for this community was staggering. The fact that she was able to feel that kind of connection with her community, to recognize the hard work that they had put into creating this experience, and also understanding that it was a special thing. It was an important thing that they were part of, and that we have a special connection together because we were part of it together. I think was really meaningful for her, and hearing that story was meaningful for me. In one of the reasons that we chose this particular group of girls is that we hoped that it would be a really stable community. We hope that we would be able to have the same 15 to 16 girls from week 1 to week 14. Unfortunately, that didn't happen at all. And we had quite a large turnover of girls for reasons beyond our control. You know, internal reasons that we never found out about meant that a girl wouldn't reappear the next week, or that we would have a new girl and we would have to start the process of learning together all over again. And because of that, in our program, it was really important for us to recognize the girls who had been part of the program but didn't actually perform. We credited them as creatives because they really were the ones that came up with all the material, all the words, all those weeks ago, as well as crediting the performers who were there singing and acting. And some had been through for several weeks, but some were very, very new at the end. So it was really important for us to credit that creative energy in the appropriate way. Okay. So now I kind of want to open things up to if anyone has any questions or anything they would like to ask about this program. I'd be more than happy to answer it. If you're watching on Facebook, you can go ahead and add things in the comments. I'll be able to pick them up, and I just want to kind of open the floor at this point if anyone has anything they'd like to ask or add. Okay, I have a question from Grace. Earlier, you mentioned the importance of building trust between yourself and the program participants. Could you describe some of the exercises that you use to build trust and strengthen your relationships with the girls? Okay, so this was something that was very much trial and error, right? Some exercises that we thought were going to be wonderful didn't really fly, didn't really build a connection that we'd hoped. So one thing that was important was that we had several different tools up our sleeves, first of all, that if something tanked, then we could move on and try something else. And also not to take anything personally. If this exercise didn't really work that well, that's okay, we'll just kind of move on. We did all kinds of things that was to build trust on a kind of a human level. So we did this exercise where we had a piece of string and we all held the piece of string, and we kind of symbolically discussed what we were going to hope to achieve and what we were hoping to expect from this kind of performance. And we kind of came into the circle. That was one. Anything that we asked the girls to do, the teaching artist did as well. So if we asked them to kind of say their name or an emotion, or reveal something about the way that they were feeling, we would do it too. We would be within the circle and we would be talking about ourselves. We had one exercise where we wanted them to come up with an emotion that they were feeling and then come up with some kind of an action to go with it, some kind of a physical movement. And again, if we were going to ask them to do it, then we should do it too. So if we were going to learn a move, then we're all going to move it. When we added choreography in, the girls taught me the moves. Like, they taught us the moves. They are much better dancers and than we are, and they really enjoyed kind of the changing of the roles between being the kind of the student and the teacher. One thing that was a little bit hard, I mean, in kind of a little bit more conventional opportunities, you can often build relationships with young people by asking them kind of, open general questions about yourself, like, hey, do you have brothers and sisters? What do you like to do on the weekends? Those kinds of things to build a relationship, which obviously isn't appropriate with this population. It's important that we don't ask anything about their families or their lives, and they don't go anywhere on the weekends, so that can be a stumbling block. So we really tried to build a relationship based on things that we had all experienced there together. So like, hey, do you remember the move that we all learned last week? I would often have these songs running in my head for days and days afterwards and be singing them all over my house. And, the girls experience the same earworms, right? So we could all just kind of bond and strengthen our relationships by sharing those common experiences, which, as you can understand, takes a few weeks to build. It certainly was not built in a day, and we worked hard at strengthening those kinds of relationships. Is there anything else? I'm going to have a look at my Facebook and see what I can see a few things over here. Oop. I have another question. What was the process of composing the opera like? I can't speak for Theo. He was absolutely, I mean, he was astonishing. His music for this group was just so beautiful and fun and open and poignant. I can't oversell it. For our saxophone friends out there, he's just written a really, really beautiful solo saxophone and chamber winds piece that I'm desperate to take a look at. So I don't really want to speak for his role. But, you know, we did exercises as musicians where we would kind of try to show off what our instrument could do. So, you know, we would play like a really nice, easy lyrical tune, or we would play something really quiet or really high. You know, we had double bass, violin, saxophone, and percussion. You know, like sonically, those are all capable of like wonderfully different things. So we definitely took the time to kind of show off our instruments to the girls and show some of their characteristics. They are the toughest crowd and the harshest audience. And if they don't like what you've played, they tell you pretty quick. And so we just try to show the capabilities of our instruments as best we can, to give them an idea in their heads of how those things could sound. And then Theo kind of took them forward and created the music. Creating the lyrics, helping them form these ideas was a lot to do with mind maps and different vocabulary kind of charts. And Julia was a pioneer in helping them to put those kinds of cohesive narratives together. But yeah, I think there were about 6 individual kind of songs or sections with some kind of reoccurring musical material as we went through. And as I say, it's scored, it's beautiful. And the girls will again be presented with a kind of a bound copy of the score as when they move on, which is very nice, I think. I'm just gonna check on the thing. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions for right now, as I say, my email is right there on the screen. If anyone has something that comes up later in the day, then by all means, please get in contact. I've just added on the Zoom chat, and I'll put it on the Facebook as well. We were absolutely really honored and thrilled to work with a journalist, Sherry Chang. She followed this whole project for a article in Arts and Culture Texas. She gives a little bit more of a writer's perspective. It's a lot more articulate. And if you're interested in learning more about her writing and that project, then that is right there as well. But again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and your attention, and thank you to CSW for hosting us. Great, and I hope you guys have a wonderful and safe rest of your day / evening, wherever it is you've come from. Okay.